we are going to begin with the breaking news today out of Miami, and that is this. The Dolphins have fired their head coach, Mike McDaniel, after 4 seasons. He made the playoffs in his first 2 seasons, but as you know, the Dolphins have missed the last 2. And this year began with Tyreek Hill's season-ending surgery in September and then ended with Tua Tagovailoa being benched. As NFL reporter Jeff Darlington joins us with the latest. And JD, it certainly seemed like McDaniel was safe. On Monday, he said he was operating as if he was going to remain the head coach and be part of the process to hire the new GM. So what gives? Why did Miami decide to cut ties with him?
Well, Hannah, I've talked to a number of people within the organization, and on Tuesday, the day after that, Steve Ross held a meeting with Mike McDaniel in which they unpacked both the past season and also his vision for the future. And Ross came out of that meeting. He continues to always have an affinity for Mike. I've felt that for months now, talking to people within the team. Ross really likes Mike. He loves his offensive mind. He loves his personality. But ultimately, he walked away from that meeting feeling like it just wasn't there, that the results haven't been there, and he didn't necessarily feel like going with what he would call status quo. And as a result, he decided it was time to pull the trigger and make the decision to fire Mike McDaniel. And obviously, now putting forward a head coaching search, which is getting more interesting by the hour.
Well, sure. I mean, John Harbaugh entered the fray, right? I mean, he's the hottest name on the market. And we know that Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, Michigan man, he likes both Harbaugh brothers. What are you hearing about the Dolphins jumping into the mix for John here?
So I'll try to unpack this as quickly as possible. I know the connection is being made that McDaniel was fired so they could hire Harbaugh, and I understand the logic behind that. But I'll tell you that they are adamant that Ross had to feel his own clarity with the decision to fire Mike McDaniel on its own, independent of whether they were able to get Harbaugh or not. Now, the interesting part of this is the general manager search is ongoing. Very literally at this moment, the team is conducting 3 different interviews. They had one interview with their interim GM, Champ Kelly, yesterday, and then today they'll have 3 other candidates in-house to interview in person. One of those guys is Chad Alexander. Alexander is directly tied to John Harbaugh. If tomorrow, when I'm expected them to make this decision, Chad Alexander is the guy, I think that absolutely puts the Dolphins in pole position to land Harbaugh. But again, this is such a fluid process, and I do believe that Ross felt the need to fire Mike before he moved on to the thought of hiring Harbaugh.
Connecting a lot of dots here, so stay tuned, as they say. Meanwhile, we do have more breaking news from Florida today because the Bucs fired their offensive coordinator, Josh Grizzard. This is one day after it was reported that Todd Bowles would be returning for another season. So that's just further turnover. We know what Liam Cohen did there, and he's gone, and he's in the playoffs now with the Jags. What are you hearing about the plans now for Baker Mayfield and that offense, and who's going to be making those calls?
Well, obviously, it felt like Todd Bowles was on the hot seat. He knew that he was going to have to make staff changes, and it did come down today, the most important probably of which is that offensive coordinator situation. So now we look toward who Baker Mayfield is going to want to work with, who Todd Bowles believes will get them back to where they were with Liam Cohen as their offensive coordinator. Certainly there are names out there. Let's bring it full circle and throw Mike McDaniel out into the mix. Now, I have been texting with McDaniel already, and I can tell you that he is already willing to take on another challenge, whether that's an offensive coordinator job like the Bucs have, whether it's a head coaching job, vacancy, perhaps the Cleveland Browns or a team like that, remains to be seen. But I can tell you that McDaniel and any vacancy for an offensive coordinator job seems like something we should be paying attention to.
Wow, just staying right there in Florida. Why not? That'll make it 4 OCs in Tampa in 4 years for Baker, by the way. Jeff, thank you. And now back to our breaking news in the NFL. There are now 8 head coaching openings in the league after the Dolphins fired Mike McDaniel after 4 seasons today. He came in, as you know, as a very hot offensive mind from the Niners, made the playoffs his first 2 seasons. Miami, though, has missed out the last 2 postseasons. Things got so bad that Tua Tagovailoa was actually benched for the final 3 games. As we're joined by Peter Schrager in studio. Nobody connects the dots better than you do, Schrag. So, okay, let's start with the quarterback. All right. So dead cap hit $99 million if they cut him before June 1st. All right. So we've got Quinn Ewers on the roster. We have Kim Miller on the roster. All sorts of factors here. What do you expect with Tua?
Interestingly enough, I think that there's going to be a GM hired in the coming days. They've done a very thorough GM search. They've already interviewed people in person, and Troy Aikman, our colleague at ESPN, is very prominently involved in that. The GM will have a say in this. Then they're going to hire a head coach, and this is not a slam dunk. Harbaugh's the coach, as you're seeing everywhere else. They're going to do a thorough head coaching search, pair that GM with the coach, and then they'll weigh in on Tua. My guess, you don't play the final 3 games of the season, new coach, new GM, and the salary cap is going to go way up this year. Likely eat the cost. I would imagine Tua is not in ink as their quarterback next year.
Yeah, 11th pick in the draft. Can you dive back into this GM search and how it might impact the coaching search?
So they did an initial round of interviews, and now they're down to the final 4, and they're bringing in 4 people in person. A lot of those people are actually in Miami right now. 2 names to watch: Chad Alexander, who's with John Harbaugh's brother, Jim Harbaugh, right now in Los Angeles, but had a long history in Baltimore with that guy, John Harbaugh. But I'd also mention John Eric Sullivan as a GM candidate who's in Green Bay and has a long history with Jeff Hafley, who is the defensive coordinator in Green Bay right now, who is getting a lot of head coaching buzz. We'll see what the Packers do this weekend. But do not think this is a slam dunk that this is Harbaugh, because Steve Ross is a Michigan man and so is Jim. I would say they're going to.
He loves the Harbaughs.
Sure,
right.
but he's going to do a full search. This is not fait accompli, as you would say.
It's so interesting. They haven't had the same head coach for 5+ seasons since the days of Don Shula.
Is that right?
Right. Think about that. You knew that.
I didn't. I was thinking Wannstedt and maybe Jimmy got 5 years. Nope.
Okay, there you go. I know. See, we don't even need Hembo here.
Sorry, Hembo.
Schrager, we'll see you on NFL Live.
Be right out there.
In just a bit. Again, that's 8. Count 'em 8 head coaching vacancies. There were also 8 vacancies ahead of the 2024 season. Last was back in 2022 that had more than that. The Finns joining the Ravens and the Falcons as the teams in need of a coach that do not currently have a top 10 NFL pick. The Dolphins pick 11th in the draft.